Have you ever noticed yourself repeating everything 2 or 3 times just so your spouse can hear you? At first, it feels small. They miss a few words here and there, so you brush it off. But over time, the TV gets louder, conversations get harder, and you slowly realize you've become their full-time translator. The moment that really hits is around other people. Everyone laughs at a joke, and your spouse laughs a second later too, but you can tell they didn't actually hear it. And whenever you bring it up, somehow you're the one mumbling. What most couples don't realize is that this pattern can quietly go on for years and slowly change the relationship without either person noticing. But there's actually a reason your spouse may be the last person to realize there's a problem. And once you understand it, their whole reaction suddenly starts to make sense. One of the most consistently documented things in hearing health research is that the person with the clarity issue is almost always the last one to fully recognize it. And this is not stubbornness or lack of awareness. It is actually how gradual hearing change works. Because the shift happens slowly over months and years, the brain continuously adapts to compensate. A partner might underestimate their hearing changes or simply not be ready to accept that their hearing health has changed. And denial is a common and deeply human response. Meanwhile, everyone around them has already been adjusting, repeating things more often, turning up the TV alongside them, and filling in the gaps of missed conversations without anyone naming what is happening out loud. In some cases, people have no real perception of their hearing loss because everyone around them has been adapting so thoroughly that the person themselves was never experiencing enough difficulty to notice it as a problem. The family was quietly compensating, which meant the person with the clarity gap never had a clear moment of confronting what was actually happening. It is worth understanding what is driving the resistance because it almost never comes from a place of not caring. Denial of hearing loss can come from a fear of losing independence or from the stigma associated with hearing aids. And in some cases, people genuinely do not realize the extent of what they are missing. For many people, accepting that their hearing has changed feels connected to how they see themselves. For some, it is a matter of vanity, as wearing a hearing device sends a signal about getting on in years, and that association is something a lot of people find genuinely uncomfortable to sit with. There is also a very predictable pattern that tends to play out in relationships where one partner is managing a clarity gap. The typical person takes an average of 7 years from the time they develop a hearing clarity issue until they are willing to do something about it. 7 years of the spouse repeating themselves, turning up the volume, managing social situations on their partner's behalf, and slowly absorbing the friction of it. That is a long time for both people to carry something without it being named properly. The way you raise this matters enormously, and the research on this is fairly consistent about what works and what tends to backfire. Rather than focusing on what your partner is missing, the more effective approach is to focus on what the relationship is missing, framing it as a shared concern rather than a personal deficiency changes the entire tone of the conversation. Specific observations land much better than general statements. Instead of saying something like, "You always ask people to repeat themselves," try sharing a specific instance where you observe the struggle. This approach illustrates your concern without making your partner feel globally criticized or put on the defensive. A good opening line that comes up repeatedly in the research is simply, "I've noticed recently," followed by one specific concrete example. Not a list of every incident over the past year. Just one moment that was real and observable. You might mention that you've noticed the TV volume has been going up, or that they have not been talking on the phone as much as they used to, and that you have been wondering about it. It also helps to be clear that the decision is entirely theirs, while making sure they know you are there to support the process whenever they feel ready. Removing the pressure of an immediate decision makes it much easier for someone to stay open to the idea rather than shutting it down as a way of maintaining control. There is one dynamic that is worth naming clearly because it tends to quietly build resentment on both sides without either person fully realizing that is what is happening. When a partner becomes their spouse's de facto hearing aid, repeating everything, translating missed information, managing conversations on their behalf, the person with the clarity gap has no real pressure to address it themselves. The compensation removes the urgency. Research indicates that untreated hearing clarity issues can significantly strain relationships, leading to frustration and a growing emotional distance for both partners over time. The person compensating starts to feel unseen and exhausted. The person with the clarity gap starts to feel managed or pressured without always understanding why the tension keeps building. It becomes a cycle that is genuinely hard to interrupt once it is established. The most useful thing you can do for both of you is to address the actual issue rather than keep building workarounds around it. Watching someone you love gradually withdraw because hearing has become too much work is heartbreaking. Carrying the weight of being their ears for years is exhausting in a way others simply don't see. But once you bridge that gap, the next step shouldn't be a battle or a massive expense. You need to act now before the emotional distance becomes permanent. I've linked here Direct Club's Nova in the description. It's engineered specifically for these clarity gaps without the clinic wait times or the $1,000 price tags. Use code YT10 right now for an exclusive 10% off and don't wait for another 7 years of frustration to pass.